Patrick Ewing was once the greatest heartbeat New York had ever known. The man who transformed Madison Square Garden into a sacred place of pride and belief. He stood at the center of every dream, the spark that lit the faith of millions. Across decades filled with storms, a Jamaican immigrant kid rose up and became an NBA cornerstone at Georgetown. He became a legend, delivering the 1984 championship and ushering in a powerful era of Black excellence that the entire country had no choice but to acknowledge. In the NBA, he poured in more than 24,000 points, earned 11 All-Star selections, secured Hall of Fame honors, and cemented himself as one of the greatest centers the game has ever known. He was also part of the 1992 Dream Team, the most dominant basketball team the world has ever witnessed. He carried the Knicks all the way to the NBA Finals, guiding New York through fiery wars against Michael Jordan, Reggie Miller, and Alonzo Mourning. Patrick Ewing wasn't just an athlete. He was a still-forged warrior holding the crushing expectations of a city that never settles for anything less than victory. Madison Square Garden didn't simply cheer for him, it survived because of him. Yet beneath that shining glory was a life slowly worn down by pain. A heart layer with scars no amount of fame could ever conceal. When the lights finally dimmed, and the thunder of the crowd existed only as echoes in memory, Patrick Ewing found himself standing alone in a Georgetown gym after being fired. A place that once welcomed him like royalty now sat empty, almost suffocating in its silence. The practice lights hung low, casting his shadow long across the hardwood. His body trembled with exhaustion, his hands shaking slightly from diabetes. His shoulders slumped as if they carried for decades of New York's pressure, and each attempt to stand tall stole more breath than it once did in his youth. The man who once set an entire city ablaze now moved slowly, like a forgotten name, as if the world had turned the page and no longer had space for him. Still, within that silence, something refused to die. An unbreakable will flickered on, even as his body betrayed him. Even as fame slipped away, there remained a Patrick Ewing who held his head high, reminding the world that a true warrior is not defined by moments of triumph, but by how they rise from the ashes left behind. If you respect the tear-soaked journey and resilience of legends like Patrick Ewing, hit subscribe to keep following the story. Patrick Ewing's childhood didn't begin on brightly lit courts or inside roaring stadiums. It began in a small home tucked behind dusty red roads in Jamaica, where the sun burned hot enough to scorch the futures of poor kids, and the heavy wind felt easier to endure than the weight carried by grown-ups. His father passed away when Patrick was too young to understand death, old enough only to feel the cold emptiness that filled the house each night. His mother, a woman hardened by struggle, worked multiple jobs with hands rough from labor just to keep food on a table. From an early age, Patrick grew up surrounded by the smell of sweat, the ache of hunger, and the quiet tension of a family fighting to survive. His body set him apart. He stood taller than every other kid in the neighborhood, drawing attention not from admiration, but from fear, discomfort, and ridicule. Other children hurled cruel names at him, refused to sit beside him, and avoided playing with someone who felt too big for such a small world. Patrick began to feel like nature's mistake, a body oversized for a life that couldn't contain it. As the years passed, loneliness became a shadow that never left his side. When his mother chose to bring him to America at just 12 years old, Patrick believed it would mark a fresh beginning. What he didn't know was that the land of dreams also held dark corners, places where an immigrant child would pay for hope with tears. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, Patrick barely spoke English, and every time he tried, laughter erupted in the classroom. His thick Jamaican accent and mispronunciations made him an easy target, an outsider. Soon, the insults turned vicious and relentless. Go back to where you came from, jungle boy, freak. Those words sliced into Patrick's heart like blades, carving wounds that time would never fully heal. Patrick had no friends, no one to confide in, no one standing between him and the cruelty around him. He was too big to blend in, yet far too young to defend himself from the harshness he faced at school. At lunch, no one chose the seat beside him. On the walk home, he kept his head low and his pace quick, trying to outrun the laughter and mocking stares that followed him. He never told his mother, terrified of causing her pain, terrified of becoming another weight she had to carry each night. Young Patrick Ewing lay on his warm mattress, eyes locked on the cracked ceiling above, asking himself the same questions over and over. Where do I fit? Do I matter at all? Those thoughts tormented a child's heart, pushing him to turn toward the wall night after night, hiding tears born from helplessness. Then, one day, he was brought into the school's indoor basketball gym. Patrick stood beneath the rim, staring up at the iron hoop hanging high overhead, and for the first time in his life, he saw something larger than himself. The ball settled naturally into his hands. The echo of the dribble sounded like a steady heartbeat, and each time the ball kissed the backboard and fell through the net, the fear of being ridiculed faded just a little more. Basketball didn't care where he came from. It didn't mock his voice. It didn't judge his skin or his appearance. It responded only to effort. It mirrored persistence. It demanded nothing but heart on the floor. For the first time, Patrick didn't feel like a mistake. He felt like someone who could become something. From that moment on, basketball became his sanctuary. The one place where America felt less cruel, where life felt less isolating, where he didn't need permission just to exist. On cold, snowy afternoons, when Patrick stayed alone in the gym, shooting until his hands went numb, he likely had no idea that the very place that wounded him so deeply would one day shape him into a legend. Before the icon existed, Patrick Ewing was simply a child stranded between two worlds: Jamaica, too distant to return to, and America, too cold to fully accept him. Only basketball welcomed him. Only the court felt like home. And out of that crushing loneliness, a warrior slowly began to form. From a lost boy caught between two worlds, Patrick stepped into Georgetown, the place where his life officially veered onto the road of destiny, and where hope and pressure collided so violently they nearly broke him. When John Thompson first laid eyes on Patrick, he didn't just see extraordinary height or raw potential. He saw deep wounds behind the kid's eyes, a fear of abandonment, of being dismissed, of being crushed under slurs already planted by both Jamaica and America. Thompson, the first black head coach to win an NCAA title, understood immediately that Patrick needed more than plays and strategy. He needed a father figure willing to stand between him and a hostile world. But Georgetown didn't bring only fatherly guidance. It brought storms almost immediately. From his freshman year, Patrick Ewing became both the symbol of rising black pride and a target for those frightened by that ascent. In every away arena, the noise wasn't just aimed at the team. It was aimed directly at Patrick himself. Go back to the jungle, monkey. You don't belong here. The words were hurled at him like sharp stones. The most brutal part was that they came from thousands at once. Standing beneath the arena lights, Patrick often felt as though all of America was watching him. Not as a player, but as an outsider on trial. Georgetown embraced him, but much of the country tried to cast him as the enemy. He became both a hero and a target, a place where fear and centuries-old prejudice were unloaded. Then, in 1982, destiny forced him to experience one of the earliest pains tied to greatness. The NCAA championship game between Georgetown and North Carolina looked like the moment he and Thompson would finally carve their names into history. But as the seconds melted away, Michael Jordan, a UNC freshman, rose up and hit the jumper the basketball world would later name the shot heard around America for many. That moment marked the birth of Michael Jordan, the superstar. For Patrick Ewing, it was the instant his heart split in two. When the ball dropped through the net, the roar of the crowd disappeared. All he heard was something breaking inside himself. He didn't just feel the loss of a game. He felt as though he had shattered the future of the team, of the coach who believed in him, of the entire black community that saw hope in him. In the locker room, the image was haunting. A young warrior sitting still, a towel draped over his head, hands covering his face. He didn't cry, not because the tears weren't there, but because the pain was too vast to escape that way. "I let coach down." That sentence carved itself deep into his mind and stayed there for years. But fate, cruel and mocking, wasn't done with Patrick. It didn't stop at bitterness. It forced him to rise, to taste victory, and then turned that victory into an even heavier burden. In 1984, Georgetown captured the NCAA title, and Patrick was crowned a young king, celebrated across the nation. Yet when the net was cut down and placed into his hands, what he felt wasn't pure happiness. It was fear. Fear that he wasn't strong enough to carry the crown. Fear that he might one day disappoint John Thompson, the man who had become his second father. Fear that the millions of Black people who viewed him as a symbol could all be let down by a single mistake. Even as the celebration raged, Patrick locked eyes with Thompson and saw what he had longed for his entire life: trust. And somehow, that frightened him more than any insult ever had. Trust is the most beautiful gift, and the heaviest weight. From that moment on, he knew every missed shot would become a headline, every loss a verdict, every mistake magnified into something criminal. Georgetown lifted Patrick with the wings of legend, but also fastened endless expectations round his ankles. Each game became a war, not only against opponents, but against his fear of losing his coach's love, against his obligation to the community, against the echoes of slurs that once made him crumble on school playgrounds. Patrick Ewing left Georgetown bathed in legend, yet inside, he carried a deep shadow, the darkness of a young man pushed into a fight far bigger than himself, a Jamaican kid still questioning whether he deserved the love the world poured onto him. To the public, he looked like a god on the court. But Thompson alone knew the truth, that beneath the massive frame was a heart always afraid, always bracing, always wondering if one day he would let everyone down. When Patrick Ewing left Georgetown and declared for the 1985 NBA draft, it felt as if the entire country stopped breathing. Then the New York Knicks won the #1 pick, an event fans still call a miracle of luck. Ewing wasn't simply drafted into the NBA. He was placed at the center of a city desperately searching for a savior. New York, in all its chaos, complexity, cruelty, and unconditional love, searched forward to claim him like a promise: "You will save us." But in New York, love is never free. Expectations always follow, and they always come at a cost. Within hours of his name being called, massive headlines flooded the city. "The savior has arrived. The franchise is here. Patrick will fix everything," to the world. Those words were a laurel crown for a rookie. To Ewing, they felt like a sledgehammer crushing onto shoulders already bent under years of responsibility. New York didn't ask him to become a hero. It demanded that he be one immediately. But the NBA isn't conquered by hope alone. In his rookie season, Patrick's body began to fracture under the relentless grind and impossible expectations. Knee issues, ankle pain, pulled muscles, sprains, injuries stacked up like warnings that even human giants have limits. And when he couldn't play, the New York media flipped faster than a fast break. Is Ewing a bust? Maybe he's not who we thought. Too big, too slow, too fragile. Those words shattered the savior image that had been built just months earlier and blasted across radios throughout the city. There was never a single moment when the lights froze and he stood on top of the world. But those things were never what defined him, because Patrick Ewing possessed something no championship ring could ever give: the soul of a true warrior. A warrior remembered not for wins, but for how he endured loss. A warrior honored not for flashes of glory, but for the times he fell and rose again quietly, stubbornly, without complaint. And that, for America, is the real legacy he leaves behind. His life delivers a lesson every citizen, not just athletes, needs to hear. Failure does not erase a person's worth. It only reveals more clearly who they truly are. Pain never earns the right to erase character. Patrick suffered from the court to the hospital, from body to spirit, yet he never once lost his decency. No one is immortal. not even those once viewed as unbreakable monuments. And the truth that even giants eventually fall forces us to reflect deeply on how we treat the people we elevate as heroes. And finally, the most painful yet beautiful lesson Patrick Ewing's life offers this generation. Cherish the people standing beside you before it's too late. Cherish parents while they can still hear your voice. Cherish children while you can still see their faces. Cherish friends before they turn into memories you wish you could hold but can't. Cherish those who fought for you, lifted you, and loved you with everything they had. Because as Ewing's life has shown us, all lights eventually go out, all glory fades, and all that remains is love. In the end, when night settles and Patrick Ewing sits alone in a quiet room, with only the sound of waves outside and a dim yellow light resting on eyes grown tired and blurry, he understands something that took a lifetime of suffering to learn. True strength isn't reaching the highest peak. It's standing back up every time you're knocked down, and that is the truth. America, a nation built on struggle, on failure, on people who refuse to quit, must never forget this. If Patrick Ewing teaches us anything, it's that real strength isn't making it to the top. It's rising after every fall. When we look back on Patrick Ewing's entire journey, it stands as one of the quietest yet most noble tragedies in American sports history. The saddest part isn't that he never won a championship ring. It's everything he had to give up to remain standing under the lights for 40 years. From a bullied childhood in Jamaica, to Georgetown games where vicious racist slurs rained down on him, to becoming the heart of New York, only to be coldly traded away a piece of paper. His loneliness walking into the tunnel after a 29-game losing streak at Georgetown, the moment he collapsed in the ICU, facing death from COVID, images that tighten our throats. And most painful of all, the day John Thompson died, the only spiritual father life ever gave him. The collapse in Ewing's heart that day reminds us that even giants carry wounds that never fully heal. Yet through all of that loss, Patrick Ewing offers Americans a priceless lesson. Failure does not erase a person's value. You can be cut from the NBA, rejected by Georgetown, forgotten by the media, but character and resilience remain the foundation of a meaningful life. He reminds us that strength is not found in glory. It lives in the ability to rise after being knocked down, whether by injury, prejudice, or life itself. And most of all, he reminds America to cherish the people living beside us now, before one day, like Ewing with Thompson, we realize our thank you came too late. If Patrick Ewing's tear-soaked journey of resilience and dignity moved your heart, hit subscribe to join us for the stories ahead. Thank you for staying until the end. See you in the next video, where we continue honoring the great souls who fought in silence.